David Miller is the head of alternatives at Cheviot Asset Management.
He thinks that there's now reason to be optimistic about the markets.
There's been, over the last few years, a sort of willingness to take excessive risk in private equity. And that's not just the private equity firms themselves, but also the investors, as you're showing there. We're seeing the beginnings of the reflation trade. We had the sellers getting tired out a couple of weeks ago. A bit of good news from US housing, and markets start to pick up.
What type of companies would be reflation?
We think the first part of it is around materials, oil and the minerals. That's led the way out. I think it's very difficult to say that the consumer will come off the floor straight away.
As the financial crisis continues and markets remain volatile, it is hard to see if there's light at the end of the tunnel, when and where and how. Our guest investor, David Miller, is the head of alternatives at Cheviot Asset Management.
If you look back, we've had a really long period, 25 years of falling inflation, falling interest rates, low tax, economic growth. You can't just dismiss that and throw that away. We're seeing the beginnings of the reflation trade.
We're joined by David Miller, head of alternatives, Cheviot Asset Management. David, many thanks for coming in. Seems to me there is a lot of confusion over what to do with the commodities play. Now, you believe this should not be seen as a strategic reserve, the commodities?
Yeah, I think strategic reserves are for governments. I think investors have got to take a shorter-term view than that, and also pay attention to economic growth, prospects, and who is actually going to be using these commodities when they make decisions.
So let's bring in our panel to debate this very subject. George Buckley joins us from Deutsche Bank, Miles Templeman joins us from the Institute of Directors, and David Miller joins us from Cheviot Asset Management.
And you mentioned Reagan, and obviously linking that to the Thatcher period. It was extreme. Those of us that lived through it and invested through it, it was extremely painful. Very, very tough decisions were taken in terms of where cuts were made and what negotiations were, or what negotiating positions were ignored. And I'm afraid to say that I agree with you, it has to be early in the next government, but those very tough decisions are going to have to be taken.